We have a big election year this year in Delaware County. We have 7 seats up. We have sheriff, register of wills, county controller, 2 common pleas judgeships, 2 county council seats, 7. And we're going to run the table in November. Thank you all for coming. As we all know, I see so many familiar, friendly faces here. We've been doing this for many, many years.
That's because your food's good, George.
Actually, Senator Carney, you're exactly right. So before we go further, I want to thank the Secretary of the Red Democratic Committee and my partner, Allison. So Allison, Danielle, and they're responsible for that food, not me. So,
You gotta give me the caterer's name.
And
That would be-
another,
that's
we have
me.
a dignitary here tonight, before we get to another dignitary, that this woman has been amazing. She was the executive director of the Delaware County Committee for a long time. She was a mentor to me and to many people here. We all love Shelley. And Shelley is tough. She's still tough. She's very tough. And she said to me, "You announce this name, you announce this name." I said, "You better give me the paper, Shelley. I don't want to forget it." Well, so the people that aren't here, I'm just going to let that go. You know, Bill Clinton's not here, and Barack Obama's not here. Anyway, so we have the mayor of Upper Darby, Ed Brown, is here. A Radnor Democratic Committee member who's now a member of the Pennsylvania State Committee, and that will get you automatic entrance into heaven when you leave. We have Lisa Goldstein. Senator Tim Carney, we're going to hear from Tim. Where's Ash? Where's Ash?
I'm here.
I'm sorry. Ash lost the district judge race a few years ago by 6 votes. But eventually, we're gonna make that right. So what we're gonna do is we have 7 seats up. So I want to introduce everybody who's running and have them just introduce themselves, say a couple of words. We don't have a lot of time for everybody to say words, but Shelley gave me specific directions. And don't disobey, Shelley. So we have 2 common pleas judge candidates, and I'm looking around for Jack Stolzheimer and Mike Power. Because I know everybody's kind of on the fence here, so you need to hear from the candidates. Jack and Mike. Mike Power, Jack Stolzheimer, thank you.
Go ahead.
Yeah, well, thank you, everybody. An amazing attendance, and thank you. I keep telling George, when this thing ends tonight, I'm going to be hiding in that other room waiting
It's all
for the
about
next
the food.
event. So thank you all very much. We have an incredible slate. We really do. Thank you very much, our honored guests. Thank you. And I'm very excited. I'm very excited to run with Jack. Jack, just a word about Jack.
Yeah.
When Jack came in, when Jack came into office, there were things that he implemented that he didn't have to do, and they were hard things. They were things that took incredible organization, a huge amount of time, and a huge investment of political capital, lowering the prison population, making other very meaningful changes. So I'm very proud to be running with this individual. Thank you.
Mike. Thank you. Mike is a great lawyer who's been in a civil practice defending consumers for years. He's known throughout the eastern part of Pennsylvania and New Jersey for the great work he does. He's going to be an absolute asset to the board or to the Court of Common Pleas this year when we take office in January, moving civil cases to justice. And I also want to thank Admiral Sestak for coming up. Your race in 2006 was really the beginning of the change here in Delaware County. I don't get the good food now that I stepped on George's line. Thank you all. Thank you so much.
Joanne and Richard. Joanne Phillips and Richard Womack are county council candidates. Richard's an incumbent. Joanne's our current county controller. Running for county council. So come on up.
So, we always flip. Where do you want to
I know.
You go. Go ahead, you go.
I'm Richard Womack, currently on County Council as Vice Chair. And I just want to thank George.
I got the SEPTA pass to ride for free, not you yet.
Appreciate you bringing this together. Glad to see you here. We're looking forward to continue this run. We have made a lot of accomplishments and a lot of changes. And we're going to continue to make those changes. And I'm just so happy to have Joanne as my running mate, because only that is going to make our team even stronger now.
Yeah.
Right. In the time that we're living in, us having this health department, we was one of the only counties that did not have a health department.
Yes.
We have it. We're going to continue to build on it, and we're going to continue to make changes. And with your help, we're going to kick some ass.
Thanks, everybody. Joanne Phillips. I'm the current county controller. I've been working with Richard and our great county council to get things done. I have to try and keep up with them because they've been so ambitious in doing the work. I just want to say that I see people here like Jean France and Joan Tarka and Maggie and people and the congressman. I just want to say that we could never have done this if it wasn't on the shoulders of the people that have come before us. We could never have done it. We did a miracle in 2017, but it's only because of all the work that was done, including Richard running in 2015 with Christine Ruther and Sharon Booker. We couldn't do it. So all this work, incrementally, building and building and building. We saw what we built on Saturday with people coming out. I ran because of Donald Trump. I'm still running because of Donald Trump. And I wish that it wasn't so. But we are needed more than ever. Absolutely. And all of you need to keep the work up. We take nothing for granted. Absolutely. We're going to kick them down to the curb. All
The next candidates that come up here are going to be our row office candidates. Sheriff candidate, Sadiq Kamara. Louis Rosenthal, and we got our three row office candidates, and you guys go.
There you know, the young one go first. I just want to thank
That
the
would be
time.
me.
Yeah, there you go. I just want to take the time to thank everybody for coming here. You know, I'll serve in the Army as well. Thank you, sir, for your leadership and everything you have done for our country, and at the same time, what you have done for this great county. As ever before, we understand what's going on in society. I'm running for sheriff to make sure to uphold the rules of law and also to uphold the rules of the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the Commonwealth.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful to be a part of this amazing slate. I'm learning so much from them, and I just can't wait to roll up my sleeve, like Governor Shapiro said, and get in the game. It's not a spectator sport. As ever before, we all need to roll up our sleeve, and it's our responsibility to get involved. So thank you to this leadership, and thank you, George.
So I will be brief. My grandmother always said, say thank you when somebody does something nice for you. Each and every one of you here tonight did something very, very nice for this campaign. It's not just about the 7 of us. It's about all of us and our county. Democrats primarily, Republicans as well. We really need to continue to do the kind of hard work that our current county council and our current leaders in row offices have been doing for all of this time. I am honored, first of all, to be in your presence, sir. I'm also honored to be in George's home yet again for a wonderful event. But I'm honored to actually run with 6 other people who have extraordinary skills. They're motivated by the right causes. They're not doing this for themselves. They're doing it for the rest of us. They lead with intellect and they lead with passion. And it's an honor for me to be here. So thank you very much.
Thank you to all my slate mates. It really is a wonderful privilege to be a part of such a great group. My name is Vincent Rongione. I'm your current Register of Wills. And I really am thrilled to be here. It's kind of an amazing full circle moment. Thank you, George. Thank you, Allison. Shelley, thank you so much for all your work on this. I was a young lawyer in 2005, early 2006, who had just passed the bar when I got my first opportunity in professional politics, and that was from Admiral Sestak. I would work all day at Schifrin and Barroway and go and volunteer at his office. And luckily, the man has such a tenacious work ethic that I could work a second full day after I got off. And it was so riveting and inspiring to be in his presence and be in the presence of so many of the people in this room who built that campaign, that I gave up that law practice when he offered me a job on the campaign, and I've never looked back. I've dedicated my life to public service and to this community, and I have Admiral Sestak to thank for that tenacious work ethic and the commitment.
So before I introduce Admiral Sestak, Congressman Sestak, our dear friend and mentor to many of us, I'm going to call Senator Tim Carney to come on up for just a moment and say a few words, and then, but I'm going to get to introduce Admiral Sestak.
Hi, everybody. It really does my heart good to see everybody here today. It's been a rough weekend, I'll tell you. The shootings in Minnesota, where state legislators were shot and killed in their own homes, that really does hit you close to kind of where you live. So I'm happy to be here. I don't think I'm going to get shot here. It's a good thing. But we need to keep this up. It's interesting. We were in a political discussion in Harrisburg last week with the caucus, the Senate Democratic Campaign Committee, and to a person, everybody involved in that said, "Oh, you're Delco. You're going to be fine." But which is really interesting because it wasn't that long ago that the entire Delco delegation was Republican in the House and the Senate, and now we're at a point where we have one Republican left. But I on the House side, not in the Senate. But I want to share with you that Doug Mastriano was quoted the other day as saying, we're only 2 seats away from Pennsylvania becoming California. What he was talking about the majority in the Senate. There's only a 2-seat majority. Now, you guys might remember back in 2018, the last time we had a Trump midterm election, my seat was one of 5 that we flipped in the Senate that had always been Republican. And they went from having a supermajority to having a majority. We've crawled back. We're now within 2 seats. Next year, we're going to be at it because we really think we can take the majority for the first time since 1993 in Pennsylvania. It's before yours. So, all I'm basically saying is we got to keep this up. We got to keep the momentum, keep working, keep making Delco what Delco is right now. Not what it used to be, what it is now, what we want to keep building on. And I have to agree with the people who spoke before. A lot of that has to do with the Admiral and the way that the Admiral stepped up and really kind of changed people's minds and made people understand what public service was all about and what it really meant about being for the people and by the people and doing the work of the people. So I'm happy to be here today. Always good to eat George's food. And I'm going to give it up so he can do his introduction. So,
Thanks, Tim. Because it's my house, I get to talk a little bit here. But so in 1978, when I was 20 years old, I was elected as a committee person in South Philadelphia. And my mentor was my dad. And I put his obituary here because honesty and integrity were his hallmarks. And I grew up with that, and that was inside me. And then I moved to Delaware County in the 1980s, and I volunteered, and we used to get our heads beat in every year. We used to get crushed like bugs. I wish Lisa Borowski was here, because that's what we say. Anyway, I was the vice chair of the party back in 2006. I was vice chair then. And we got a great candidate that was going to run for Congress, and then we got word, there's a guy, he's from Delco. He was in the Navy for years. He went to the Naval Academy at the top of his class. He's a brilliant guy. He's a 3-star admiral, and he wants to run against Kurt Weldon in 2006. And I said, holy holy, well, you know. What I'm saying. And so then I met Joe, and it was like, a mentor who was full of integrity, decency, honesty, but this guy was as honest as they come. And it's so easy to work for somebody, work on their behalf when you know that they have this strength inside of character. He's not afraid of standing up and doing the right thing, even if it might not be popular for everybody. He's not going to go pander to this one and pander to that one. He's going to do the right thing. So Joe ran in 2006. We were right there with him all the way, and we were still getting our heads beat in everywhere. In Radnor, we hadn't taken over. We didn't take over until 2009. But anyway, that year when Joe ran, it was what a year. What an amazing year. Because many of you don't remember how bad it used to be. And the Republicans, Radnor Township, the Radnor Township, the main line, it was like, forget about it. It was just Republican city. Real quick story, I moved in this house when I was 38 in 1996. And I bought a CD of TV themes because I wanted to let them know who just moved to the big house. And I put the speaker at the window, and my then wife was coming in here with my sister, and just as they got out of the car, I turned on the TV theme from the Jeffersons. And that's how it started. And then I became the chair. Since I've been the chair a long, long time, and was with Joe. And when Joe called me and said, "We want you to run for Congress," and he said, "Well, how could you say no to Joe Sestak?" But this man has been a beacon of credibility, character, decency, and most of all, honesty. And that's why I put this obit here. Because no, it's okay. Anybody can free to look at it. But in my life, I've had a few people who have been guideposts of integrity, and this man is one of them. And I love you, Joe, and you're the best. So welcome.
I'll fall. I'm not used to this anymore. So but thank you very much, George, and I'm very grateful you're hosting this. And I actually have an opportunity to come back and spend quite a long time to the people I actually served and be along with those officers that are serving or soon will be. And I wanted to say that because I loved being a sailor on the high seas. I just loved it. But in all honesty, I came to truly, truly enjoy politics. And that's because I think that except for war, you get to see human nature at its most raw in politics. And, we have a fellow in the military we all study who says war is politics by other means. But I actually discovered that politics is war by other means. Instead of national interests of countries colliding, it is the personal, individual interest or group interests that collide, sometimes fiercely, and even like war, violently, have you seen when we lost those lawmakers recently? Or if it was January 6th, or the assassination attempt on President Trump. And I bring that up because you, George, were there at some of my rawest moments. The one I will always remain most grateful to you for is when you made it possible for a letter from me to be given to Anita Hill, to let her know why I was going to stay in the race, despite the efforts of a fine president and the Democratic leadership after our inspectors switched parties from being a Republican to become a Democrat. And I will always remain most grateful for that. It was a great lesson, I learned from that of human nature and politics also, that the nuns down there at St. Francis of Assisi tried to instill in me when they taught about that great sacrament of the confession to God. And that is, I learned with that experience that it's better to offend God than a politician. Because God does give forgiveness. And Abu and Shelley, you two both called, and I'm very grateful. And Abu, I always call him the Hat. I'll never forget our first event together, just the three of us. And I got out of the car, and they pulled up in theirs, and I watched for the next 10 minutes as Abu gently tried to coax, entice, and finally pull Shelley out of the car at 6 a.m. at Flockport train station on a frigid Monday morning to pass out brochures. You remember. And then you retreated to the warmth of your home and held my first fundraiser in Delaware County. Just thank you. And Vince, I'm told that you were the one who came up with the idea of inviting this prodigal son home. But I don't feel like a prodigal son because Vince actually welcomed me back last year when I went into the courthouse as the executor of my sister Kathy's will. And he stopped by to see both how things were going and how I was. And I've always remembered that because he really exemplified that those officers, the row officers and others, are the officials that are really closest to the people can have the most direct impact on what matters most to people, families, at a time where I was trying to come to grips that there was no tomorrow with Kathy. And so Vince, I always remember that. And everybody else who took a chance on this hill who knew nothing about politics when I began. I can remember driving up here to see Cliff Wilson. And I go in to see him. And he says, "You got to tell the DCCC." And I said, "Why does Delaware County Community College need to know that?" Honest to God. I did not know it was a 2-to-1 Republican to Democratic district. All I knew is I owed my country a payback tour because I had a health care plan. In the United States Navy, you all gave us that when they said our 4-year-old daughter had 3 months to go, they couldn't get the tumor out of her, I could go where we had to go, to Children's down there in Washington, D.C., where they brought a doctor all the way from Massachusetts down that gave her back to us. That's why, no matter what happened in those Senate races, I am so glad that we had President Obama to be president because I had to pay back my country. And when that Affordable Care Act went through a committee I went to purposely to pay back my country, because all I said when I announced, and there was 4 people there when I announced, including Gil Spencer, if those who remember him, all right? And there were 4 people there, and all I said to kick it off was, I'm a retired Navy admiral running on national security that begins at home in health security. And when I voted for that bill, because I went to committee to make sure I would be there for anything on health care. And George Miller, committee member, after we finished amending it, this and that, and it passed with a vote from our committee, each of us got to have an historic moment, in my opinion, to say what we felt about the bill. And what I said, this is why I came to do in Congress. I've done my duty, I can now retire. And I always will most be grateful for that day. And with that, I would like to talk a bit, if it's okay, about the candidates and tie it to some of the national issues that are happening, if you could bear with me. And I say bear with me with a caution of what I'm going to try to remember from my very first and my very best political advisor, who sat behind me at one of my first household events with about 20 people there. And as I was expounding upon the virtues of my campaign, and going on, and then took a pause, this young 4-year-old voice spoke up and said, "Daddy, do politicians always talk so much?" And so with that, if I could start with Jack, with you, and Mike. I think it's wonderful you're running for judge. I always felt when I was in Congress that the Democrats neglected the judicial branch to their peril. Because everything eventually goes to the judicial branch. It doesn't matter whether it's an election of a president, or it doesn't matter whether it's a president that is going to disregard the constitutional due process and send a U.S. resident to a foreign land that isn't even his into the most notorious prison in the world. It's a far cry from the days of Abraham Lincoln, when a mom came to see him and asked him if he would please forgive her son from he was about to be hung for desertion. And when he told his irate Secretary of War that he had pardoned this man all he said was he just had a case of the squiggly legs. And Jack, that's why I so respect the diversionary program you established as district attorney. For low-level offenders, instead of jail and prison. You know those guys and gals with the squiggly legs who had done no real harm, and you gave them, like Abe Lincoln, a second chance for a good life. I also remember this man in my very first serious conversation with him, because he also looks at the facts. You were a safe schools advocate for the Philadelphia School District, trying to have the schools report how many violent incidents do they have every year. You know, and that's required under the Safe and Drug-Free Schools Act. And he was finding out that Diogenes, that ancient Greek philosopher who carries his lantern still today, looking for the honest man, was looking for a transparent school district. Because nobody wanted to report how many violent incidents they had. And yet all he wanted to do was have the data, so that he knew where to apply the limited amount of money where it could have the best good to protect the teachers and the pupils. The reason I bring that up, Jack, is that office that he reported that data to was actually in the education department, but that office itself was created in 1867, and its name was the Education Department, well before Jimmy Carter came along. I bring it up because the Congress back then established that office with one mandate: to gather that, quote, it's actually to gather and report data, statistics, I apologize, for efficient school systems. That's back when, unlike today, the real model people thought of the US government should be, in God we trust, all others bring data. And that's what you were trying to do. What can we do with data? I bring that up because I went to the Education Department committee purposely as one of 3 committees. Because I honestly believe education and workforce development is our true homeland defense. I went there, and I was always impressed, though, with the history of the Education Department, as we've now kind of abolished it, although the judge is on hold for a while. And I bring that up because that office continued over the following century and a half. Even though its name changed and its location in government changed, it never stopped doing its job of fueling the infrastructure of Homeland Defense. The second thing it was assigned to do was to ensure our agrarian prowess, our agriculture prowess, by overlooking the landmark colleges that had sciences having to do with the agrarian sciences. And because of that, a cow today in America produces 10 gallons of milk a day. You go to Africa without that education department, and the smarts of those people back then, it's 0.4 gallons of milk today. That continent is going to double its population to 2.5 million people, 85% increase, almost double, in the next 25 years. Imagine the nourishment they're going to need. And if they could have a cow, if USAID still existed, to be able to bring the genes and technology of that over there to that continent, so you had one cow replacing 22 cows, and the methane that won't be put in the air, which is 28 times more damaging to climate change than a pound of CO2, would be immense. And so then that department, if I could just stay with education for a while, is that it then wanted to ensure our manufacturing prowess, because the next thing that started happening was our industrial age. But what it did is remember what Lincoln said: capital is merely the fruit of labor. And so they set up, the first time ever, only time really ever, a national vocational training program. So the capitalists could have artisans who knew how to build the machine, build the factories, maintain the machines on it. And because of that, we had our manufacturing prowess. You ratchet ahead, as I skip ahead and come to World War II, 16 men went off to war, emptying those factories and entering the croplands. And we had, for the first and only time in this nation, under the auspices of the Education Department, we had a universal child care program. So Rosie the Riveter could leave her kids at home and to man that empty factory. And also to take over the croplands where the farmers also lost. And when their loved ones came home, we did something extraordinarily revolutionary under that education department. We started the GI Bill, to where these 8 million of them took it up to go to college, where just 20 years earlier, 90% of all United States doctors had never been to college. It was such a revolution. And within a decade after Sputnik happened, and the USSR, we were fearful, was going to dominate us in space and technology, the National Defense Education Act was passed, and we actually, for the first time, had those now nefarious student loans, where you have math, science, and also foreign languages, because then under Eisenhower, people understood that foreign world out there, we better understand, because they're going to impinge upon us one way or the other. And as I wrap them up, I can remember being at St. Francis, which I mentioned.
And St. Kevin's.
I know you were St. Kevin's. But you were fortunate maybe, but not so much. 90 kids were in my first grade classroom. I had 70 kids in second, third, and fourth grade in that class, those classrooms. I'd walk by Central School on Saxor Avenue, 1 block down. They had 30. Why? Because for the first time, that education department funded public schools, because the states were overwhelmed by those baby boomers just all of a sudden exploding. And then, of course, civil rights came along, finally, disabled, they oversaw the rights for them, the rate of race and what. By the time Jimmy Carter consolidated that up until today, up until the inauguration, that department had the smallest staff of all 17 agencies and the 4th largest discretionary budget. Dodge before there was a Dodge. And yet what it has done for us that people just can't remember. And I'm sorry to go on about it, Jack, but I'll never forget my first conversation with you on that. And Mike, where's Mike? Right here. Put him to sleep already. You mentioned proudly of him about his consumer work. I can't tell you how much I think of him because of my own experience here in this district. I mean, what I learned was amazing. How you actually took care of the guy and gal, the consumer, the private citizens against corporate abuse. Some of you may remember Bill Walsh. My classmate, he's a Bonner boy, I forgive him, O'Hara. We went off to the academy together, stayed best friends together, served in the same battle group and went to war together, ran the campaign, and then I kept him here on the high ground. I mean, he was 2-1 Republican, and I needed him here. And that great recession hit us. And as Bill said, we're hemorrhaging. We used to have 30 to 40 people lined outside of the office, not knowing where else to go. He got 60 interns from around the universities and colleges here. Spread them over, you're right, 7 days a week. 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. As Bill said, we had no choice. We are MASH for them, triaging them. He handled 4 times the constituency cases of the average congressional office. We had women come in, cervical cancer. She had missed 1 payment of an increase in her premium 3 years earlier, and I still remember $29.42. And that corporation denied her care for her cancer. We got that changed, but what I most remember was homes. I mean, that was always the American dream. Bill Walsh saved over 900 homes in this district from foreclosures. ABC came over and did a story twice on him and his crew. This wasn't me, this was him. I can remember, though, and as I was thinking about my remarks, Mike, how you must have felt. They interviewed several people, and the next day they went with an 85-year-old couple who had had their home for over half a century to the courthouse with the paperwork that those interns had done. I mean, I love youth. They're not burdened with experience, and they're willing to try something. They need an adult in the room once in a while, and ABC went with them. And when they came out, there was tears in their eyes, that these kids had found out or the youth had found out that they had been denied illegally modification to their mortgage, and others had had false documents submitted as payments were wrongly placed in other accounts, like a separate account that belonged to the corporation. And people have to remember that 52% of Americans have a literacy rate of 5th grade or below. And you want them to find the big corporations. The work you do is, and I mean it, it's absolutely amazing. But commensurate with that is what you did for Cheyney University. That's where I went to teach after I lost the 2010 race. Because the African-American community, particularly out of Philadelphia, was my best demographic. I remember 2 years later, Bob Brady said, I don't know why they came out. I went to 200 of their churches, you know? and they trusted me. And I had to pay back, so I went to Cheyney. But when I was in office and you had gotten that polling station that they were going to move away from Cheyney University and kept it there to deny them literally where they're going to move